She was folding his laundry when she found the wedding invitation, with someone else's name beside his. After 6 years of love, 1 proposal, and 1,000 promises, she realized he was planning a life with another woman behind her back. But instead of falling apart, she did something he never saw coming. She seduced his billionaire best friend, and made him watch as she became the woman he could never afford to betray again. Ella moved about the room with gentle ease, the morning sun painting golden stripes across Daniel's bedsheets. The quiet hum of a jazz playlist drifted in from the Bluetooth speaker in the corner. The kind he always liked, smooth, calm, unobtrusive. It was Saturday. Daniel had left earlier that morning for a meeting with a client, another vague, last-minute appointment, but Ella didn't ask questions. She never did. She trusted him. After 6 years together, trust had become muscle memory. She picked up a crumpled t-shirt from the floor, then another. Daniel had never been neat, and she never minded cleaning up after him. It was her way of showing love, small acts, invisible to most, but meaningful to her. She folded his clothes methodically, smiling slightly as she came across the red hoodie he practically lived in during winter. Her eyes drifted toward the nightstand drawer. It was partially open, just slightly ajar like it had been closed in a hurry. Normally, she would have ignored it, but something about the way it gaped at her made her reach for it. Inside, she found the usual: receipts, cufflinks, a few scattered business cards. But then something caught her eye: a thick cream envelope, high-quality paper, sealed with a gold wax stamp. Elegant. Expensive. She tilted her head slightly. Curiosity pricked at her. Daniel had never been one for stationery. Carefully, she broke the seal. What she saw made her blood run cold. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Daniel James Marshall and Serena Wellington." Her fingers went numb. For a moment, she didn't even breathe. Her eyes scanned the words again. Slowly, carefully, like reading it differently might change the meaning. But the names didn't change. Daniel James Marshall, her fiancé, and someone named Serena Wellington. The date was printed in embossed gold lettering. 4 weeks from today. The venue was a private estate just outside the city, a place she'd once jokingly suggested for their own wedding. Her knees buckled slightly. She sat down on the edge of the bed, still staring at the card. Her hand shook as she ran her fingers over the smooth paper. The card was crisp, brand new, professionally done. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't some old joke between friends or a discarded invitation for someone else. This was real. Her mind screamed questions, but her lips couldn't form the words. What was this? Why hadn't he told her? Who the hell was Serena Wellington? Ella closed her eyes. Her chest rose and fell in short, panicked gasps. She pressed her fingers to her temple, trying to think. Only 2 weeks ago, he had taken her to dinner, held her hand across the table, told her he couldn't wait to see her in a wedding dress, that she'd be the most beautiful bride he'd ever seen. Was that all a lie? She opened her phone with shaky hands and searched the name. Serena Wellington. Within seconds, her screen was filled with photos. A sleek, stunning woman. Long hair, high cheekbones, dressed in designer brands, often flanked by her billionaire father, Harlan Wellington, owner of Wellington Ventures. One of the richest families in the country. A name Daniel had mentioned once, maybe twice, when bragging about networking events. A sick, sinking feeling hollowed out her chest. She had been played. He was marrying a billionaire's daughter while still engaged to her. Living a double life. Preparing a wedding with someone else in secret while still holding her hand every night and calling her my future wife. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was surgical. Calculated. Her heart felt too large for her ribs. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. She made no sound, just sat there, invitation in hand, as the reality crashed down over her like a cold, merciless tide. The door creaked downstairs. Her spine straightened. Panic surged. She shoved the invitation back into the envelope and stuffed it into the drawer. She wiped her face roughly with the back of her hand, just as Daniel's footsteps began climbing the stairs. "Babe," he called out. "You up here?" She cleared her throat. Yeah. The door opened. He smiled casually, keys dangling in his hand, coffee in the other. Hey, thought I'd surprise you. Ella turned away from him, pretending to be focused on folding his hoodie. Thanks, she said softly. He walked over and kissed her cheek, oblivious. What have you been up to? Just cleaning, she replied. Her voice didn't crack. Not even once. Always so helpful, he said, chuckling as he sipped his coffee. I don't know what I'd do without you. She smiled faintly. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. He really thought he could get away with it. Ella didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Daniel in the same bed they had shared for years, staring at the ceiling in silence. His breathing was steady, slow, deep in sleep. His arm rested across her waist like always, warm and familiar. But it no longer brought her comfort. It felt foreign, misplaced. Each inhale of his felt like a betrayal. Each memory she replayed. His proposal, their late-night talks about children, the ring he'd picked for her. All of it rang false now, tainted by the truth. He stirred slightly in his sleep, tightening his grip around her. Love you, he mumbled, lips brushing her shoulder. Ella closed her eyes, her chest tightening. Why are you still lying, even in your sleep? The next morning, she didn't speak much. She made coffee like always, toasted 2 slices of bread, buttered them, and set them on the table before he came down. Routine. Normal. Deceptive. Everything okay? Daniel asked, sliding into his chair with a yawn. Ella nodded, forcing a small smile. Just tired. You've been quiet since yesterday. She hesitated, then shrugged. Headache. He reached over and squeezed her hand gently. You've been doing too much. You should relax more. Let me take care of things this weekend. She held his gaze for a second too long. He smiled like a man with nothing to hide. She looked away. Inside, a hurricane was forming. The days crawled by. 3 of them passed in eerie calm. Ella kept up the act, responded to texts, kissed him goodbye, laughed at the right times. But when he wasn't looking, she was crumbling. At night, she cried in the shower. Silently. Bitterly. Her tears mixed with the water until her skin was raw from scrubbing. Her mind kept spiraling. Why didn't he tell me? Why would he propose and still plan a wedding with someone else? How long has this been going on? She searched for signs she had missed. Mismatched schedules, sudden meetings, business trips that had lasted a little too long. And the pieces began falling into place, puzzle-like and cruel. But nothing explained why. She knew she couldn't go on like this. Something had to give. On the 3rd day, sitting alone on the balcony with a cold cup of coffee in her hands, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her closest friend, Tasha. Tasha, are you okay? You seemed off when I called. Ella stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. She hesitated, then typed. Ella, I found his wedding invitation. To someone else. It took less than 10 seconds before her phone rang. She answered, her voice barely a whisper. Hey, wait, what did you just text me? Tasha asked, her voice sharp. Ella exhaled shakily. Daniel, he's getting married next month. To someone else. I found the card in his drawer. Tasha went silent on the other end. He's marrying Serena Wellington. That billionaire's daughter. Oh my God, Tasha finally breathed. Are you sure? I saw the invitation. Her name. His name. The date. It's real. Ella, I don't even know what to say. I do, Ella whispered. He's using her. He's marrying her for the money. For her father. You don't know that. I do now. One of Daniel's co-workers slipped up on the phone yesterday. I overheard him say, once you marry into the Wellington family, we'll all be eating good. They laughed like it was some big joke. Tasha swore under her breath. He's still with me, Ella continued. Still acting like we're getting married. Still telling me he loves me. He's sleeping in my bed, touching me, lying to my face. So what are you going to do? Ella paused. Her grip tightened around the coffee mug. I'm not going to cry anymore, she said slowly, firmly. He made a choice. Now I'll make mine. Tasha exhaled. You want me to come over? No, Ella said. I have something to take care of first. There was steel in her voice now. the kind forged in heartbreak. That night, Daniel came home with flowers. "For my beautiful fiancé," he said, holding them out with a smile. Ella took them, kissed his cheek, and thanked him. She smiled, but her eyes had changed. There was no love left in them. Only fire. 2 days passed before Ella acted. She needed time. Time to process the rage, the humiliation, and the aching betrayal that still lived under her skin like an infection. But now, the grief was crystallizing into something sharper. Purposeful. She no longer wanted to confront Daniel. Words would be wasted on someone who had made his intentions clear. He didn't deserve a breakdown. He didn't deserve her tears. He deserved consequences. It started with a name, Leonardo Hale. Daniel had mentioned him often, sometimes with admiration, sometimes with envy. They were friends, yes, but the balance of power was always tilted. Leonardo came from old money. His father had built an empire in tech. Leonardo expanded it in private investments, and his influence reached corners of industries even Daniel hadn't broken into yet. Daniel had once said, "If I had Leo's kind of backing, I'd be unstoppable." Now Ella remembered that. She also remembered the way Leonardo looked at her at Daniel's last business gala. Nothing inappropriate, but a glance that lingered just long enough to be noticed. She had thought nothing of it then. But now it was ammunition. Ella sent a message through Instagram. Casual. Short. "Ella, hi Leonardo. Hope you're well. I need a bit of advice. Wondering if we could meet for coffee." She didn't expect a reply right away. But within 5 minutes. "Leonardo, of course. My assistant will set up something for tomorrow afternoon. Private cafe or your preference." She stared at the message, her heart racing. Not with guilt, but with the adrenaline of taking control. The next day, she dressed carefully, tastefully elegant. Not flashy, but unforgettable. Soft curls, a deep green wrap dress that hugged her figure just right, a gold necklace Daniel never once complimented, but she knew looked stunning on her. Leonardo was already there when she arrived. He stood as she walked in, smiling, not politely but warmly intrigued. "Ella," he said, offering his hand. "Leonardo." They sat in a quiet corner of the cafe, where no one would hear them. He waved off his assistant, ordering her usual drink without even asking, he remembered. A small but telling detail. "What kind of advice are you looking for?" he asked, watching her closely. Ella paused, then leaned forward slightly. "I'm going to tell you something," she said. "But before I do, I need to know that what's said here stays here." He nodded once. "You have my word." She took a slow breath, then said it. "Daniel is engaged to me. He proposed 6 months ago. But I recently found out. He's marrying Serena Wellington next month." Leonardo blinked. He leaned back, expression unreadable. "I had no idea," he said after a moment. "I thought they were dating, but I didn't know it was that serious. And you?" I found the wedding invitation in his drawer. He exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. "Jesus." Ella looked at him, her voice calm. "I don't need your sympathy. I don't want to expose him. I want something else." Leonardo's brows lifted slightly. "Revenge." She tilted her head. "Something like that." A pause. He stared at her for a moment, long and hard, as if weighing something. Then he said, "What exactly are you proposing?" "Let's start with dinner," she said, smiling faintly. "Somewhere public." He chuckled. "So you want him to see us?" "I want him to feel it." Leonardo smirked. "I admire your style." She stood, reaching for her purse. "Text me the time." As she turned to leave, Leonardo said, "Ella?" She looked back. "I always thought Daniel didn't deserve you. I just never said it out loud." She held his gaze. "Now's your chance to prove it." 3 nights later. They dined at a rooftop restaurant Daniel loved, Ella's choice. The kind of place where industry elites mingled and whispers traveled faster than servers. She and Leonardo were seated at the center table, visible from every angle. His hand rested lightly on hers over the tablecloth. They laughed. They leaned close. They looked like lovers. Daniel walked in 15 minutes after their main course arrived. He froze when he saw them. Ella saw him, too. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Leonardo caught Daniel's eye and raised his glass in a slow, mocking toast. Daniel stood paralyzed at the entrance, his fiancé wrapped in the company of the man he envied most. Ella didn't break eye contact. It was a war declaration, and she had just fired the first shot. The night Daniel saw them together, something inside him cracked. He didn't make a scene at the restaurant. He couldn't. Not in front of all the people who once admired him. Not with Leonardo Hale, the one man who could ruin him with a single phone call, sitting across from his fiancée, laughing like the world was theirs. Daniel had walked out of that restaurant with a tight jaw and clenched fists, eyes burning holes through the back of Leonardo's head. And Ella? She hadn't even flinched. Not once. She met his gaze and smiled. Smiled. The same smile he used to come home to. The same smile she had reserved for him for 6 years. And now, it belonged to someone else. 2 days passed before he said anything. Ella was in the kitchen when he finally snapped. She turned from the sink, wiping her hands on a dish towel, only to find him standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" he asked. She blinked at him calmly. "About what?" He stepped closer. "You and Leo." Ella tilted her head. "You mean the man you said you respected? The one you used to call your closest friend? Don't play games with me, Ella." "I'm not." "But you were." "For how long, exactly?" Daniel's jaw flexed. "I never stopped loving you," he said tightly. "You didn't love me enough to stay faithful," she replied. "Or honest. Or decent. I was protecting you." Ella laughed once, sharp and hollow. "By marrying someone else?" He stepped closer again, but this time his voice dropped to a bitter whisper. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? Leo doesn't care about you. You're just a pawn." "Funny," she said, her eyes narrowing. "That's what you made me." Daniel said nothing. Ella dropped the towel on the counter and walked past him. "Don't worry. I'm not here to argue. I already said goodbye. You just didn't hear it." That same evening, Daniel stormed into Leonardo's private office without calling ahead. The receptionist tried to stop him, but Leonardo's voice over the intercom allowed him through. Inside, the office was all glass, steel, and silence. Leonardo was seated behind a matte black desk, dressed in a dark blazer with a relaxed smirk on his face, like he'd been expecting him. Daniel didn't sit. "You're really doing this?" he asked. Leonardo leaned back in his chair. "Doing what, exactly?" Daniel slammed his hands on the desk. "You're sleeping with my fiancé." Leonardo raised a brow. "Your fiancé?" He opened a drawer, pulled out a sleek folder, and tossed it onto the desk. "Pretty sure that title expired the moment you started planning a wedding with another woman." Daniel's face flushed. "You knew I was with her." Leonardo didn't blink. "And you knew you were betraying her. So what exactly is your point?" Daniel's fists tightened. "We've been friends since college." "No," Leonardo said calmly. "We've been competitors since college. Don't get it twisted." There was a beat of silence, one that burned. "She's mine," Daniel said, his voice low. Leonardo stood up. "Not anymore," he said. "You gave her up the moment you chose power over love. And now," he walked around the desk, his tone cool and deliberate, "now I'm going to marry her." Daniel's face went slack. Leonardo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You were after a business deal. I'm building a life." When Daniel returned home that night, he found the ring box on the coffee table. The engagement ring he gave Ella 6 months ago was inside, glittering under the ceiling light. Next to it, a short note in her handwriting. "You broke something I can't fix. He didn't steal me. You lost me. Good luck at your wedding. E." He sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, staring at the ring like it was foreign. Something heavy tightened in his chest. For a long moment, he didn't move. But the storm wasn't over. He just didn't know what was coming next. 3 days before the wedding, Daniel stood in front of the full-length mirror in his penthouse, adjusting the lapel of his custom-tailored tuxedo. It was his final fitting. Everything was perfect. From the rare champagne ordered for the reception, to the diamond-studded cufflinks that gleamed like promises. Yet, for all the perfection around him, nothing felt right. Not even Serena. She was beautiful, polished, charming in the way rich girls are taught to be. But there was no fire, no warmth, no real history. She smiled like she was posing for a photo, not like she cared. And every time he touched her, his mind betrayed him with a flash of Ella. Ella laughing at his terrible jokes. Ella in pajamas with tangled hair and sleepy eyes. Ella holding his hand like he was her entire world. And he threw it all away for this. Still, he told himself, it's worth it. This wedding changes everything. Or so he thought. That afternoon, his assistant knocked softly and stepped into the room. There's a man here to see you. From the Wellington estate. Daniel frowned. Send him in. A tall, older man with a severe haircut and a perfectly ironed suit entered. He placed a sealed envelope on the table and offered a short bow. Mr. Wellington sends his regards, he said, and his regrets. Daniel picked up the envelope, brows furrowing. What's this? A formal notice. He opened it. He read, and the floor dropped beneath him. Effective immediately, the engagement between Serena Wellington and Daniel James Marshall has been dissolved. Wedding proceedings have been cancelled. A more suitable match has been secured for Ms. Wellington, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. There was no emotion in the letter. It was cold, corporate, like the termination of a contract. Daniel looked up. You're kidding. You can't just cancel the wedding 3 days before. The man's expression didn't change. Mr. Wellington can and has. Serena is engaged to someone else now. A merger more in line with his long-term financial vision. Daniel's face turned pale. I gave up everything for this. Then perhaps, the man said curtly, you should have invested more wisely. He turned and left without another word. Daniel sat down slowly, letter still trembling in his hands. His mouth went dry. He pulled at his collar, suddenly hot. It was over. The wedding. The money. The future. All gone. In a single page. The rich man who was supposed to make him powerful had discarded him like a poor investment. And Ella, the only person who had ever truly believed in him, she wasn't coming back. He had lost both women. And now he had nothing. Desperate, Daniel grabbed his phone and dialed Ella's number. It rang once. Twice. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. And again. Finally, a text came through. Ella, please stop calling me. He stared at the screen like it might change. He typed, Daniel, the wedding's off. Serena's father canceled it. I made a mistake. Please can we talk? No reply. He sat in silence. After a few minutes, another text arrived. Ella, you didn't just lose me. You sold me. Now I've found someone who loves me and respects me. You only love the idea of me. He loves the reality. Goodbye, Daniel. Daniel stared at the message, jaw tight, hands numb. The silence of the room was suffocating. He looked around at the designer suits, the expensive liquor cart, the grand view from the balcony. None of it mattered. Not without her. Daniel didn't sleep the night the wedding was called off. The penthouse was dark except for the cold, blue city lights that filtered through the glass walls. He sat on the edge of the bed in his discarded tuxedo pants, staring at nothing, his thoughts louder than the silence. Everything was unraveling. He thought the worst part would be losing the Wellingtons' wealth. It wasn't. It was losing Ella, the one who knew his dreams before he could articulate them. The one who had stood by him when he was broke, uncertain, barely building his name. The one who loved him when he had nothing to offer but a cracked heart and raw ambition. And he threw it all away. For what? A name on a checkbook. A family with a seat at the power table. He picked up his phone again and stared at her last message. He loves the reality. The words cut deep. He stood up suddenly, grabbed his keys, and left. It was almost midnight when he arrived at her apartment. He knocked once, then twice, harder the third time. A light came on behind the curtains. Moments later, the door opened, and there she was. Ella stood in the doorway in a loose satin robe, her hair tied back, eyes puffy from sleep. She didn't look surprised. Just tired. What are you doing here? She asked quietly. Daniel's voice caught. I needed to see you. Daniel. Please, he stepped forward, but didn't cross the threshold. Just let me say what I came here to say. Ella didn't move. But she didn't close the door either. He swallowed hard. I was stupid. I lost sight of what mattered. I thought I could have both, you and the Wellingtons. I thought marrying Serena wouldn't change how I felt about you. Ella's gaze was calm. But it did. He nodded. It did. I broke something I can't fix. I know that. But I need you to know. I still love you. Her eyes flickered. Then why wasn't that enough? Daniel's voice cracked. I thought I was doing it for us. For our future. I wanted to be rich enough to give you the life you deserved. I already had the life I wanted, Daniel, she said. You were it. The version of you that didn't lie. That didn't look at me like I was a step on a ladder. Silence. You can hate me, he said. You probably should. But I'm asking, please. Let's start again. We can rebuild. Ella exhaled. Her shoulders softened. I don't hate you, she said. That's the problem. She looked down at the floor for a long moment, and when she looked back up, there was peace in her eyes. I loved you more than you'll ever know. But I won't spend my life wondering if I'll ever be enough again. I found someone who doesn't make me question my worth. You mean Leo, he said bitterly. No, she said firmly. I mean someone who shows up for me. Who doesn't make me feel small when he's chasing something big. Daniel's throat tightened. Ella, I can change. She shook her head gently. That's the thing. I don't want you to change for me. I want to be with someone who never needed to. There was finality in her voice. I'm done begging to be chosen. You already made your choice. You just didn't think I'd ever leave. He looked at her, searching for something in her face. Regret, softness, a door slightly ajar. But there was none. She had already left. Long before she opened the door. He turned away slowly, walking down the hallway with heavy steps. Ella closed the door behind him with a soft click. Not with anger. Not with tears. But with release. The invitation was printed on soft ivory paper, elegantly embossed in rose gold script. Leonardo Hale and Ella Morgan, together with their families, joyfully invite you to their engagement celebration. The venue was a private garden estate in the countryside, intimate, elegant, and drenched in lavender twilight when the event finally arrived. Ella stepped out of the sleek black car, wearing a champagne silk gown that shimmered like morning light. Her hand rested gracefully in Leonardo's, and as they walked past the guests gathered on the manicured lawn, every head turned. She no longer walked like someone recovering from betrayal. She walked like a woman who had survived it and rebuilt herself stronger. The evening air was perfumed with fresh roses and citrus. Music played softly in the background, jazz again, but this time warm and alive. Servers weaved through the crowd with glasses of gold-rimmed champagne and small crystal plates of hors d'oeuvres. Ella smiled easily, laughed without hesitation, her fingers resting gently on Leonardo's forearm as he introduced her to colleagues, investors, and childhood friends. He looked at her the way Daniel never did, not as a prize, not as a possession, but as an equal, a partner, a woman who chose to stand beside him, not behind. Daniel stood near the back of the crowd, a guest of a guest. He hadn't planned to come. He had deleted the invitation twice before curiosity got the better of him. Now, standing alone with a drink he hadn't touched, he watched her. She was radiant. Not in the dramatic, overdone way Serena had always strived for, but effortlessly, powerfully, soft in presence, yet impossible to ignore. He didn't belong there, and he knew it. His tailored blazer felt like a disguise. His once sharp confidence had dulled into something hollow. As he watched Ella laugh at something Leonardo whispered into her ear, a sharp pain bloomed in his chest. That should have been me. But the truth stung louder. He had his chance, and he wasted it. As the evening continued, Leonardo took the microphone briefly, his voice calm, grounded, and warm. I'm not one for long speeches, he said. But I will say this. I've spent years making deals, building things, chasing goals. But nothing I've ever created means more to me than the life I'm about to build with this woman. He looked at Ella. And unlike most things in business with her, I didn't have to fight. I just had to be honest. And she chose me back. A soft applause rippled through the garden. Ella's eyes glistened, but she held them steady. Her smile said everything. Daniel turned away. As the night settled into candlelight and slow dancing, Ella found a quiet moment beneath the fairy-lit archway near the garden's edge. The scent of jasmine hung in the air. She was alone for a moment, sipping her drink, her eyes calm. She heard footsteps behind her, familiar ones. She didn't turn around. You shouldn't be here. Daniel exhaled behind her. I know. They stood in silence for a beat. I just wanted to see you. One last time, he said. You've seen me, she replied softly. He stepped closer. You look happy. I am. Does heat really make you feel safe? Ella turned her head, finally meeting his eyes. He doesn't have to make me feel safe. I am safe with him and with myself. That's the difference. Daniel nodded slowly. His throat bobbed. I thought I could replace you, he admitted, voice raw. And I thought I could just fix it later. You didn't just lose a woman, Daniel, she said. You lost the future we built. You lost the version of you I believed in. He looked like he wanted to say more, but the words died on his tongue. She turned back toward the garden, toward the life that waited for her. Leonardo appeared in the distance, smiling as he approached. Without looking back, Ella said her final words to Daniel. This is what it looks like when a woman loves herself more than she loves her past. And then she walked away. Daniel stood there in the shadows, watching the woman he lost disappear into a world that would never again include him. Not as a partner, not as a friend, not even as a memory worth revisiting. We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.